Hey everybody, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. I'm Steve.
No, Marty.
And we do this podcast, or we try to do the podcast every week. We're dedicated to doing aquaponic grow and teach people how to grow aquaponic cannabis and related topics to both of those, aquaponics and cannabis. Marty and I both are involved in a bunch of different projects. Him more on the West Coast, me all over the place, and we do this episode every week. Marty, you want to tell us how you've been? Oh no, you're in the middle of something. So,
That's all right. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, Marty, you want to tell us what you've been up to? I know you did some new posts yesterday, I think, or this morning about your outdoor lettuce or veggie grow, and so you had some new posts about your dual root zone stuff.
Yeah, so I set up a couple in the back. I think I have 3 out of 4 set up back there, and another one that I still have to waiting to let it get a little bigger before I transplant it. And then moving the outdoor, moving the after I moved what was indoors outdoors. I'm now rebuilding the garage, and I got one shelf set up with the fish tank there, and got everything transferred into that system so I can keep it all going while I rebuild it. And so then I'll take apart basically the system I had in there before and rebuild it. It's gonna be pretty similar to the way that I had it, or the way that I built the outdoor, except for the beds will be a little bit lower to the ground, not quite as tall, and there'll be beds more like my front porch system as opposed to the barrels. So the barrels I already had, so I just wanted to build something to fit with it. And then, but it'd be really easy for that outdoor to just put beds on with the liner. So that's what I'm gonna do for the garage system. It'll look just like the outdoor, except for they'll have beds instead of barrels. And yeah, so that's going pretty well. Got my got my shelf set up, got all the fish moved, got all that stuff moved out. So, and I actually had a buddy who's going to give me a grow tent. He said he had what he thinks is either a 4x8 or a 5x10 grow tent that he just wants me to, as long as I come pick it up, he'll give it to me because he has a whole room built out now, so he doesn't need a tent anymore. And
Nice.
So I'm going to go pick that up. So yeah, just kind of working on the indoor stuff. The outdoor is pretty much all ready to go at this point. Got the catfish all in there, got everything cycling and everything. I mean, they were already established beds and everything anyway, so it's not like a big deal. But so I planted some seeds and stuff in there to grow some stuff while they're vegging and all that stuff. But yeah, outdoors pretty much set to go. The indoors in process, and so yeah, it's been a productive week so far. How about yourself?
I have been running around all over this freaking island the last couple of days. We've been running around looking at land for one of our projects. We yesterday I spent, and if you guys want to see some of it, University of Technology of Jamaica has a little experimental aquaponic cannabis grow that one of the professors there has been working on, and there's a video of it up on my channel if you're interested in seeing that. But we're going to help them bring them up to speed and get them producing some stuff that looks more like American production in terms of volume and weight and all that. But they had it was interesting to see their system and how they go about things, and showed them what red russet mites were, and
Yeah,
a few other things that they
that first plant
weren't familiar to look with. Yeah, I was gonna go back and do a second one, but then I don't know. I just wanted to show off what they had, and I didn't want to really get too much into what was going on and stuff. But yeah, they had a few problems that they hadn't quite known how to handle in an aquaponic system. So we're helping them, and we'll be working with them on a project as well, which I'm pretty excited about. And what else? What else been doing? Running around looking at land and pricing out, greenhouse frames and a bunch of other materials that I'm trying to get pricing on, on the island versus off island, and importing it, and a bunch of boring stuff that you guys probably don't care about. But yeah, that's been fun. We picked up there'll be a new project we're working on, hopefully up in Missouri before too long, which will be pretty dope. Which I'll have more details for you guys before too long. It's another project we picked up last week after the podcast. Should be announced, I think, next week publicly, and then I can tell you guys about it, which would be pretty dope. That one will be in the West Coast, so that'll be pretty cool. Won't be quite up your way, but it will be in the West Coast, and once it's publicly announced, I can talk more about it. What else? Just trying to find various objects in this island, mostly.
Yeah, it's probably
And
good
land.
down there. You can't just run down to the grow shop, right?
Yeah, well, not even that. Like construction supplies that I'm like used to having only come from one or two stores on the entire island, so I have to like call them up or, otherwise find out how much things are from them and things like that. So it's a task that I was trying to do for pricing out something for somebody is turning into a much more difficult task than it would have been in the States for sure. I would have been able to do all this in about 2 hours in the States, and it's taken me probably 3 or 4 days
Is
to
that
do the
for
same thing.
that for your project down there, or is that for the one in Cali?
No, it's actually, this is for a project down in Jamaica, but it's cool because it's giving us, right now we have 2 projects we're working on, 2 separate here, but for intensive purposes, like at the very least, the pricing out these greenhouses is going to work for both. So,
Cool.
it's 2 birds, 1 stone.
Right on.
But yeah, once we have that, and assuming everything works out with that, then I can tell you guys more about that. And show you guys some of the layout and stuff like that once I have it a little more rendered and all.
Right on.
But,
Well, I got
yeah.
my sample of Mammoth P this week.
There you go.
So I think I posted that in the group. I think so. Picture of it. And they do a great job with their samples. I've gotten one of the little bottles from one of the local grow shops here. Had some samples of it, and I'd gotten one before and put it in the worm bin. And so I went on their website and filled out their little form, and they just showed up in the mail. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, they're really good about that. They're pretty cool. They did all their research through CSU in Colorado.
Right on. And
I've met
so, yeah,
I've met the guy.
I was checking
pretty
that
nice.
stuff out, and it's obviously it I already knew that it worked really well, and other people have posted about it in PFA. You talked about it. I have a couple of grower friends around here that I already know that use it. There was I don't know if you watch his videos or not, but there's a YouTuber named Grow Mouse, I think is his name. He does like LED
Groma.
Groma. There you go. And so he had one all set up where he was going to do an experiment and have Mammoth P on one side and not Mammoth P on the other side. And then like a week into it, there was like such a difference in the plants. He's like, fuck it, I can't not give it to all the plants because they were so much different. He's like, just screw the experiment. It's better. Use it. I'm done. It was pretty funny.
So we have a product that's going to make the Mammoth P look kind of silly. I'm going to send you a sample and you'll be able to do videos on it too. I'll make sure you get a sample as soon as I get back to the States later in the month. But we have I was telling you about it. There's this stuff we call the, I can't tell you any more about it other than we'll send you a sample and do some documentation.
Right?
I'm hoping, yeah, this blue stuff that we're working on. But we'll have some other samples to give out to people on the podcast as well here in a month, about a month or so, I think it is. Yeah, 2 weeks to a month. Some samples to give out and get some feedback from people on something that we've been working on as well.
Well, good. I'll be in flower on the indoor then, so that'd be good timing.
Perfect. But yeah, that Mammoth P, man, that's some good stuff right there. I was talking to the guy, and what a lot of people don't know is that it also makes some of your microbes a lot more available. So specifically, it does a huge, not huge, it does a great job of making your molybdenum a little bit more available. So molybdenum is one of your primary nutrients responsible for color. So if it's like a blue strain or a rainbow strain or a purple strain or a black strain, you'll get really, really, really good color out of it, especially if you're in a dispensary type situation. You want to get a little bit better sales appeal for your bud. It's definitely a great way to, aside from it boosting the potassium, or not potassium, phosphorus availability, it also boosts molybdenum and a few others, which I wasn't even aware of until I talked to him. And then I had tried it on my Warlock strain, and man, that stuff made it like almost black, even when we, even in the grow room, rather than having it in the outdoor, but especially the outdoor. Man, I have some pictures of the stuff. It's just almost just jet black herb. It's just really, really cool.
I've seen a couple of strains like that when I was much younger, like probably about like 20 or so. I went into a friend of mine in Southern Humboldt. He had a big grow room down there, and he had maybe like I don't know, maybe like a 8 by 10 area of just this one strain, and he had some other strains in there too. And it wasn't like overly like huge buds, but like literally the entire plant was like jet black, and it had these like cool like bright purple leaves that grew out. Like all the shade leaves growing out of the buds and stuff were like a dark purple, and then like even the stalk, like the whole thing was black.
Yep.
And that was he would let me, every time I come down there, he'd let me pick out, I could pick any bud that I wanted to, except for in that one area. He's like, you can't afford it.
It tastes different though. When it gets that color, it has a different flavor to it. Whatever that is, that pigmentation.
I don't know what it was about it, but he got top dollar for it out of San Francisco every time he grew it. So it was like it wasn't a big yielder, but he basically grew it for a client who paid him very, very well to do it. So
Yeah,
I guess it was good.
I know this is kind of dumb, but this is some from mine.
Cool.
Black.
Right on.
That was my Warlock. That was last fall. But man, that strain was the darkest strain I've ever grown. It's one of my favorite strains to grow too, especially in aquaponics. The bud size is a little on the smaller side, but it just gets so branchy and so bushy, it makes up for it.
Right on. Yeah, it's kind of like OGs in that way. They kind of are, long and lanky and sort of like I don't know, not ideal bud structure, I guess you would say, at least for selling anyway. I guess it's probably the way that we judge it, I suppose, or at least the way that when I think about it, that's the way that I judge it. But anyway, a lot of the OGs that I've grown, the lemon OG, even the Skywalker a little bit, gets long and lanky and doesn't have like the massive colas that you get in some of other strains, but it's still some of the best. Like some of the lemon OG that I've smoked was just really good.
In chat, oh shoot, I hit the wrong button. In chat, Plant Builder asked about yucca extract. So yeah, actually, that's a good thing you bring it up. Yucca extract, if you put it in your aquaponic system, will kill your fish. You got to be really careful with that. That's not something that you want to put in with fish, unfortunately. It's one of the few things that you kind of have to take off your list if you're used to working with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not. It's like one of the few sort of things like that that are that you can't even put in like relatively small doses.
Yep.
Can you send me the link? I don't have the chat up.
Oh, sorry. No worries.
Let's see. I think you
I'll
posted
send it to you. And... No, I sent you the. There you go.
Right.
So how is your We can both talk about the various things moving along with the legal situations in our various locations. So you want to go first with Oregon?
Yeah, sure. So Oregon, we had a new edibles law take effect. So I don't know if anybody um, is really affected by that, but recreational um, can now sell or buy edibles. Previously, they were not able to. And there's also like labeling requirements that went in, but really all that stuff everybody had to comply with already. So it's not like any like big change. You know, the edibles, everybody switched over to making the lower dose edibles pretty much as soon as the announcement came out that that was going to happen. So it's only really been like a month or so, maybe two, I can't remember, since they've been able to start doing extracts and edibles again anyway with their temporary licenses. So it's available to everybody now, which I guess is great for recreational users. For medicinal users, it poses a problem because it came with limitations, just like every other form of legalization that we've had so far. So downside for medical, but you know, I guess it's good that it's available for everyone. I guess the reason that that it can be an issue for medical patients is just that it increases their cost of medication by a lot. So if you're limited to the 10 milligrams per edible dosage, then you know, if you take 100 milligrams, you end up having to pay 10 times as much for your medication as opposed to getting it in a in different form. And yeah, there's probably not going to be exactly 10 times as much, but it's going to be a significant increase, even if it's just in packaging, because they can't package them in a whole container. So let's say you wanted to buy RSO or whatever, like you wanted to buy for medication, it's going to be packaged differently in smaller dosages, because that's what they're required to do. And so if you're just going in and buying medication off the shelf, then it's going to cost you a lot more money is what it comes down to. So that's kind of a downside for medical, but for if you're a recreational user and you're in Oregon, then you can go buy edibles at the dispensary now, which you couldn't do before. So I guess that's good. And then Jackson County still, here where I'm at, is still looking at getting sued. It's already been determined that they can't prevent recreational users from being able to grow for themselves. That was at least in their good enough in the legislation that passed to where that's pretty ironclad, and that's already sort of the first thing that they've worked out on the state level. So that's already come down, and Jackson County is already looking at, you know, sort of being in trouble, or I guess getting sued for misinterpreting that and trying to limit that. So if you're in Oregon, the state has come out and basically said that no matter where you're at, you should be able to grow at least 4 recreational plants per property, as long as you're the property owner and you have permission and you know you get all that other stuff together, then you should be able to grow at least 4 plants per property for recreational, and they are not supposed to take, or legally can't take, that right away from you. So that's definitely good. As far as medical goes, they haven't quite made a determination yet as to what's going to happen with county or state, or excuse me, county or city regulations that are being imposed in sort of a roundabout way, like we've talked about before, where they regulate farm use in specific zoning areas. So if you're urban residential or you're rural residential, you're residential at all, basically, then you're getting limited in what you can grow. So whereas before, last year, my limit would have been 48 plants, and I could have grown for up to, I think, 8 other patients or something like that. As to this year, if I went by Jackson County's regulations, I would be able to do 10 plants outdoors if I pay $1,600. So that's kind of the main, I guess, determination that still has to be made about what's going to happen with Jackson County misinterpreting it, and that lawsuit will get resolved, and then it's going to take time for whatever they decide to actually put into fruition. They're going to put, some sort of time frame on it so that everything can be adjusted. Jackson County will have to. It looks like Jackson County will have to adjust its regulation to account for the minimums that OHA has already set. So, I think that's probably going to work itself out, but I don't think it's going to work itself out this year. So, pretty much, kind of screwed a lot of growers for this year. And the big determination now is what happens if you, in this interim period, what happens if you break the regulations and you get fined or whatever else, and then it gets thrown out in court. I mean, obviously, you're probably still going to have to pay to get, have some sort of legal fees to be able to get rid of whatever charges they do file against you. So everybody just sort of trying to work out like, okay, well, everybody wants to grow just the minimum that they can grow without, or I guess the most that they can grow without getting hassled. So everybody's trying to figure that out, and everybody, I'm sure, lands differently on that scale. But for me, I'm going to grow 10. I have 10 that I'm going to flower in the garage. It'll finish right about the time that the ones outside start flowering, and then I'll have 10 outside. So that'll be my 10 max. And then when I harvest the outdoor, then I'm going to go back to the indoor. And hopefully by then they'll have it resolved. And then next year, maybe I'll be able to put in more plants like I had planned on. I have room probably for, let's see, I did 12, I did 16 last year. So I probably could have easily done 24 or even more this year. But just don't really feel like pushing it. So that's kind of the legal status as of right now. And yeah, good and bad, I guess. How about you?
So Jamaica finally posted all their applications and what the fees are and everything, and depending on how much of the production you want to be able to do yourself, or like if you want to be able to produce and sell, it dramatically changes how much it costs. And they pretty much copy and pasted, I'm sure, one state's laws, but the what they have set up is just totally overkill for what there is realistic for Jamaica. And they're already working on the first set of amendments, which we had a talk with some people yesterday about, as far as recommendations for the first set of amendments. There's a big meeting in Kingston about it yesterday, and we were there about that, and that was pretty neat. But yeah, they're going to be doing a bunch of amending to it, but in its current state, it's pretty jacked up. But like, for instance, if you have a hermaphrodite plant, you have to buy bags from Jamaica, the government, and you gotta put that herm plant in there, and you gotta mark it, and then you gotta like resubmit it back to them, and like just a bunch of like over regulatory stuff that's like kind of normal for Colorado or Oregon or Washington or whatever for seed to harvest productions. But for Jamaica, where half the guys that are going to grow are growing, and another one is like it has to be within a certain distance of a road. Some of the best growing areas are all hiking only on this island. Like, there's so many rules in this that are just completely ridiculous, that like it has to be fenced in completely with a 6-foot fence. You're not going to do that for some of these places, nor do you need to if you're, for how remote some of these places are. You know what I mean? Right. It's so, it's clearly just a copy and paste, and it needs a bunch of work. And they really should have done a better job of cleaning it up beforehand. But, I guess it's a starting point. But yeah, so. But I don't think we're going to have an issue. Yeah, the nice thing about Jamaica is it's more about, who you know than anything else.
Well, yeah, that's really about the same here in Oregon. I'm pretty convinced that, they wanted to create a vacuum for people to be able to fill up. I mean, I talked about this with the oil when they this shut down people being able to make oil. You know, I think they wanted to create room in otherwise well-stocked dispensaries so that people with invested interest, recently invested interest, I suppose, could then come in and capitalize on it. So, and I think that they really want to do the same thing with flower and dispensaries here, is being able to cut down as many mom and pop growers as they can, so that you know, the big corporations can swoop in and set up larger shops. And you know, it's really, you know, all this zoning stuff has really been perfect for that, because you know, that I think something like 80% of our county is zoned residential. And so basically that means anybody who has EFU zone land or timber zone land or any of those other ones, their property value is automatically skyrocketed, just because, you know, people are looking to purchase property here now for just that purpose, and nobody's going to want to buy residential land that you can't produce anything off of, or you can only produce 10 plants off of, for instance. You know, that might be great for somebody who's looking to, you know, buy a house or something and help pay off their property a little bit faster. But if you want to set up a cannabis business, or if you're already running a cannabis business, you know, that all those restrictions, you know, just do nothing but cause problems. So I definitely think that there's a healthy conspiracy theory, I suppose, about why all those zoning restrictions comes down. Whether or not it's actually true, I don't know, but it definitely seems like it has some merit when you look at like Doug Bridenthal, for instance, here in Jackson County. You know, he's got what appears to be some fairly dirty ties.
Yeah, here in Jamaica, they just don't really know how to go about trying to structure selling ganja, because they've never done it before, nor do they have any kind of similar production model, you know, for anything else here. So that's been half the problem, and then they changed their governments, and
right, which is really the same thing that we're trying to do right now. Like I just mentioned Doug, and he's been ousted, so he's not he was up for re-election this year, which was too bad for him. Like the Right to Grow and a whole bunch of other people sort of launched and he's made a fair number of enemies, was under investigation and misspent a bunch of money and all kinds of other things, at least allegedly. I don't know what happened with his case, but and so he was already under investigation for a bunch of other stuff. But anyway, he will not be the nominee for his position. He won't even be in the election because he lost in his primary race. So, you know, I'm sure that a lot of people in that Right to Grow group would like to take a certain amount of responsibility for sort of beating the drum against him. At least we don't know how good of a replacement we'll get. We may end up replacing him with somebody who's has an even worse stance, but maybe at least less dirty. At least he'll be open about his negative view towards cannabis. And really, I think if somebody has a negative view towards it, that's fine. But if you just can't legislate against it, you know, you don't have to agree with it, but you still have to do what's legal. You still have to do what voters vote in. So,
yeah,
you know, I don't care your personal feelings about it, but if you're not able to set them aside and do your job without trying to profit from it, then you probably need to be voted out. So even if we get somebody who is openly against cannabis, I'm almost, you know, still say, well, that's still sort of a win in this particular case. Plant Builder says, looks like Brown Guy 420 got shit canned. Kind of saw that coming.
I'm very confused by that statement, but that's fine. I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, who's Brown Guy 420? Sorry to be ignorant. Type faster. No, so yeah, I don't know. I know somebody posted some pictures of somebody getting busted in or maybe that was just on my timeline. I can't remember, but it seemed like somebody did.
Organic farmer in Southern Oregon.
Huh. Is he on YouTube? I'll have to check him out. Solo Farms. Huh. So you think he got busted? Is that what you're saying?
Also, thanks for the people that are watching live.
Oh yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always nice to not have to come up with everything to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, the farm fired him. I see. Yeah, that kind of stuff happens a lot, like especially to growers that like maybe who don't have, and I don't know the guy, so don't like think I'm talking about him or whatnot, but I've seen time and time again where you either have growers who know a lot about growing and not much about business, or vice versa, or you get both of them together and then they argue a lot. So it definitely can be a tough business to be able to sort of figure that out. I've seen lots of good growers and good business people that just couldn't quite get it figured out. It's just like any other small business. Again, it's all about who you hire and who you work with, and those first couple of years are really the most important if you can get those under your belt. So in corporate situations, though, like if somebody comes in and starts making everything about profit, that can be really tough. That can be really tough for a grower who's like really connected with plants. There's a lot of growers out there who, I know guys that will go to extreme lengths to save one clone, and just because they get attached to plants, and that's kind of how they are. And while that is a cool thing on its own, that doesn't really make much business sense to sort of try to save a plant that you could just replace and probably do a lot better and get more production and save time and not spend as much time on it. So I think it's little like conflicts like that end up sort of demoralizing growers in that way when they have to start doing it strictly for profit in a corporate environment. That for profit is different than covering the cost of your grow and making some money on the side. And I think that's a big misstep. I think that when black market growers try to go corporate, it's tough.
Yeah.
I've seen
So,
that happen with lots of good people.
I thought we could talk about how to dose calcium today, and maybe go over a little bit of some ratios and stuff. Do you want to talk about how you handle calcium and stuff, and then I'll go over mine?
Sure. How I handle calcium is I have to neutralize my calcium carbonate in my water constantly because I have so much of it. So for the most part, I have an abundance of it in my well water, which is, I've talked about it before. It's great for my aquaponic system, not so great for the plumbing in my house or really anything else. It's not even relatively healthy for me to have a high level of calcium in my drinking water. But and I also have to replace the like if you have a filter in your fridge, for instance, like they recommend you change it every 3 months. Mine's like every 3 weeks. That's just a ridiculous amount. So I use the phosphoric acid in my pH down to help sort of break down that calcium carbonate in my system and keep it down. So I don't supplement it. I haven't seen any like calcium deficiencies, and I have at least a few barrels that have been running for like 2.5 years now. So I'm pretty confident that just that from the amount of calcium that's already in my water and getting it broken down by the phosphoric acid, that's why I don't see or have to dose for calcium. So I don't do much to handle it, I guess, is the answer to that question. I'm spoiled rotten, as you pointed out before.
Yeah, if you have super hard water, you can have that. The other nice thing is you have really good pH stability. The downside is that it makes it annoying for trying to dose things because it limits you to, it really limits on, you to pH stable only nutrients that aren't going to mess with your pH much, which kind of limits you on certain things. Makes it kind of hard to dose, like potassium silicate or a few other things that are nice to dose and get you to boost up certain things on a cheaper basis anyway. I like to use calcium carbonate's a good one to raise it. Another good one is dolomite, which is calcium magnesium carbonate. And with your calcium,
you got both
you're aiming. Yep. With calcium, you're aiming for a 2-to-1 magnesium or calcium to magnesium ratio. So if your calcium's like 50 or 60, you want your magnesium to be 20, 25, something like that. And it can be off by a little bit, and this is in parts per million, and that's roughly what you're aiming for with your dosing. But you can also use crushed eggshells or oyster shells if they're washed and crushed. You can use aragonite, which is a form of calcium carbonate that is widely available at aquarium stores. You can also use calcium chloride. Just make sure you're not overdosing your chloride at any one dose when you do that. You can use. Some people like to use calcium hydroxide. I'm not a big fan of hydroxides, but you can use it. Some people do use it. If you're doing something that's pH neutral, you can always use calcium sulfate. And then the other one that you can use is calcium monobasic phosphate, which is also sometimes sold as triple phosphate. But that's nice because your calcium to phosphorus ratio is also important. 1 second, I have it on here. So you want your potassium to be 1 to 3 to your calcium, or 1 to 4 to your calcium. Ideally to keep everything relatively balanced. I know that sounds a little vague, but when you're balancing out your parts per million, especially with your dosing, if you really know what you're doing, that's kind of what you're aiming for. And I try to keep mine in the 60 to 100 parts per million range.
Right. So just in simple terms, if you have 20 parts per million of calcium, you need 60 parts per million of potassium, right? I mean, that's
of phosphorus. I'm sorry.
Or
Did I say potassium?
I think you did, but that's all right. Either that or
I meant phosphorus. Yeah. So to repeat that, you want a phosphorus to calcium ratio of 1 to 3 or 1 to 4.
Right.
Which is just as important as your calcium to magnesium ratio, as far as making sure you're maintaining a balance with your nutrients, and you're not going to get any kind of lockout or anything like that with the calcium affecting the phosphorus or anything, or the magnesium affecting it.
Right. And so and if you don't do that, then like you were saying, you run the risk of getting lockout, right? That's essentially the same.
Yeah, what'll happen is if your calcium gets super high and you don't have your phosphorus to the right ratio, what'll happen is it'll start to uptake and lock out a bunch of your phosphorus. So like if you're just constantly dumping calcium into the system, eventually you're going to end up with phosphorus uptake issues. Again, you can go back to that Mulder's chart, and if you look on there, it shows you that when your calcium's real high, it affects your phosphorus. But yeah, we've documented that as well.
Cool. Well, that's some good info.
Yeah, we had a couple of different calcium carbonate products, and one of them we ended up overdosing, or no, I didn't, but one of my coworkers at my old work overdosed by quite a bit. Learned a whole bunch about lockout of different things, and there's plenty of documentation that goes along with that as well, as far as other in hydroponics and things like that as well.
Cool.
Yeah. So, but my main ones I use are gypsum, which is calcium sulfate, or the calcium carbonate, or the dolomite that I like to use the most.
Right, and so that's a good point about the you were talking about the phosphorus ratio too. We were also talking about Mammoth P earlier in the podcast, and so that's obviously the main focus of Mammoth P is to make your phosphorus more available. And so that's actually probably, even though you're not necessarily dosing nutrients with microorganisms, you will see an increase in your system if you have a buildup that's not available. So
yeah, it increases your bioavailability of those for your plants.
right. So actually, Mammoth P is the only like beneficial microbial I've seen where after somebody dosed it too high, they got nutrient burn. It's everything else that I've seen, like worm tea or even modern microbes or labs or any of that stuff. I've seen him put on pretty heavy doses. He's a pretty heavy indoor grower in the PFA group and does that kind of stuff. He's here in Southern Oregon too. And so when he first, that's where I first found out he got a sample of Mammoth from that same grow store that I did. And he dosed it pretty high, I think, in week 4 or something like that, and actually did get some nutrient burn on some of his lower leaves. And so we just assumed, I guess, obviously we didn't test it or anything, but we assumed that he must have had a relatively large amount that was not available, so that when he dosed at such a high level, the bacteria made it more available all at once, and that was the reason for it. But I suppose it could have been just about anything else in terms of something else in the mix, I suppose. But that's the only other thing that I've seen, or the only microbial that I've seen result in nutrient burn. So I don't know if you have any insight on that, but that's pretty much what we figured, is that he had some in his soil somehow that was not as available, so that when we released it, it just had a big burst of it.
Yeah, just dumped it all in. Yeah, high P. Did he have like purplish or necrotic stuff going on in the centers of some of the lower leaves?
Yeah, I didn't actually see it, so I don't know. So don't know if he was like if what the shape of the leaves were in. Just that he said a lot of the lower leaves had some nutrient burn. So
yeah,
I don't know. He didn't send me pictures or anything.
It's entirely possible. I haven't ever dosed it up to that point, but
I think I'd have to look at the schedule again, but I think in the 3rd or 4th week of flower, it does increase the dosage you're supposed to put in by quite a bit, and I think he went above that because that's kind of the guy he is. I think he just wanted to push it and sort of see what would happen.
Yep.
So anyway, that would be my only advice about Mammoth, I guess. And your relationship to calcium also is that if you make your phosphorus a lot more available, that you could have to also dose some calcium.
Pure calcium, yeah.
Plant Builder says Mammoth ? And that is Mammoth P.
Yes, Mammoth P.
What is it? Mammoth Microbes, I think.
Yeah, Mammoth Microbes.
Let me get the link for you.
Might be able to grant him permission to post a link. I think you can post links in here, Plant Builder. Or the Westbridge doc, whatever that is here. He posted a link in chat here. We'll see what it is. A question about organic BioLink. It's 6% calcium. Trying to find what this stuff is made out of here. Not for sale in California. Huh. Must be good then. I'll look this up and try and find out what on earth this stuff is made out of. Oh, here we go. They have a BioLink molybdenum with amino acid. That's actually pretty good. I'll have to do some research on this. Oh, here's is this the MSDS here? That's good because I didn't have anything for the stuff today. Yeah, this is calcium phosphate. Yeah, that's another good one. So he asked about organic BioLink, which is calcium plus 7%. That's a 060. That would be one that you could use in aquaponics.
It won't let you post links, Steve.
Oh, it's derived from rock phosphate. So yeah, it's derived from rock phosphate. So yeah, I don't see any reason why this wouldn't be okay.
I saw Mammoth took down their sample form though, so I guess they only have it available when I assume when they have samples ready, or maybe they changed something. I'm not sure. I just filled it out like last week, but when I went to post it for somebody, it was not available. So
it's because you got your sample. Oh, I had one.
Could be.
Yeah, it locks out your IP address based on your real address. They're in your
Well, you
computer,
could do that. You could definitely do that. But I had the reason that I was looking for it was that I told somebody about it and they went to look for it and they're like, there's no form there. So I went to look for it again so I could send it to them and they were right. There was no form there. So I even tried to go back to the, like in my internet history and find, because I just did it like a few days ago or last week. And so I went back and I tried to go to it through my history and it wouldn't come up either. So they took it down for some reason. I assume because they're out of samples. If they're smart, they would take it down when they don't have samples to hand out. So I guess either that or they're just not doing samples anymore or doing something different with them. But anyway, definitely keep an eye on their website. I know it's not cheap stuff, but it comes highly recommended and well tested.
Yeah.
And you can see lots of reviews too.
I was wondering how well that would work in like a tea, if you could brew it up and basically use it as like a seed culture for when you're doing, a 48-hour tea or something like that. It's not something I'd had time to experiment with before I left, but it's something I wanted to.
That's what I'm doing is I'm just adding it to my worm tea about 12 to 24 hours before I feed it. And that's pretty much how I'm dosing it. So I'll let you know how it goes. But it's worked really well for me so far. I've only dosed once, I think, though. So, yeah, that's the plan. We'll see. And I've got I think I sent you, I got a few different size. I went around and scrounged up a bunch of different like pots and stuff I could use to try and get like different sizes and shapes to test out dual root zone in. So that'll be kind of fun. I got that one little small one. I want to see if it explodes or what happens with it. But yeah, I'm gonna come out one day and it's just gonna be like exploded all over the top. No, but I think that I'm at least hoping that it'll be able to stay there around the stalk and then have most of the roots grow out underneath it. But we'll see what happens. It'll be fun. I have another one. I have all but I think I have 3 of them done. I have 1 of them left to do. And the other 2 are some larger square pots. And then the last one I'm going to do is a bigger, the one bigger pot I have, it's probably like maybe 20 gallons or something like that. And so I'm going to fill it up, get the last one transplanted. Once the clone gets a little bit bigger, then that outdoor will be all set. So that'll be kind of fun to do. And so I'll be dosing the worm tea into that. And I'm also thinking about doing an alfalfa sprouted seed tea because the Mammoth P feeds on the alfalfa. It's the, just like lacto is for the labs, alfalfa is what the main feed is. Even in Mammoth P itself, they put alfalfa extract in with it to keep it alive in the bottle. So I think I'm going to do some alfalfa sprouted seed teas to try and keep as much of that as those microbes around for as long as possible. And probably since I do have dosed it in the worm bin and will continue to dose a little bit in the worm bin, I'll probably feed the worms some of that too, in hopes that it sort of establishes and sticks around and ends up just sort of being a part of my tea as it gets brewed.
Mhm.
That's the theory, anyway.
Yeah, I was. Have you ever tried anything with moringa as far
No,
as teas? I'm
I
trying to
haven't.
find out anyone that has done some teas with moringa. So, if anyone has any information on that, let me know. I have a bunch of moringa right now I'm sitting on, and we're going to be testing some stuff. But
So it looks like Plant Builder is asking in chat what some of our pea sources are that we use.
I drink a lot of liquor, and that tends
Rum
to
is
make me
great.
pee a lot. Rum makes me pee a lot. We'll do phosphorus next episode, or the episode after that. We'll go over all the different ways. We're trying to do a different nutrient like every episode and all that. So, I mean, if you want to, Mammoth P is a great way to boost your. We've been talking about that a lot this episode. That's a great way to boost your phosphorus availability.
Right. Even in like I was just talking about, the sprouted seed tea is also another way that you
Yep.
can add some to it, especially if you use alfalfa. It's a great way to do that.
No, I was actually going to get to that with you wouldn't want to use a lot of your calcium, your CalMags, because they're calcium nitrate. Most of them are calcium nitrate and Epsom salt. That's a huge percentage of them that are out there on the market for both hydro and soil. So
Hey, KDAC.
simplest of nutrients. Like, what do you mean? Just like what the regular stuff we use are? Or? I do a lot more fine tuning based on pH. Like I base all of my what I'm dosing based on my current pH and whether or not I got to move it or not. And then I kind of work around that, and then I balance my sulfur and chlorine or chloride inputs. Is kind of, I guess, the overall idea. I have certain ratios for certain nutrients that I try to stick within, and I have my ppm ranges I've been working on and all that. But yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question on that one? For iron, I guess it would be DTPA. Calcium would be, calcium carbonate to raise it, or calcium sulfate. I guess would be the short list for this week. Or dolomite if you need to raise it, and when you also add, magnesium at the same time. The other one that's also good sometimes you'll see in aquarium stores is high magnesium aragonite. They sell it for calcium reactors and saltwater aquariums. It's another good one to use for boosting calcium and magnesium with a high availability rate.
KDAC, if you go to buildasoil.com, they have like an amendment package that they recommend for amending a certain amount of soil, and it comes with a lot of that stuff that he's talking about. You can get like a certain amount of dolomite. I think it comes with blood meal. It's like $15, and you get sort of a nice base set of nutrients that you can use for problem solving, like Steve's talking about. So if you check them out, it's like a most of them are just in powder form, and so it's a great little amendment package that you can use, and all that stuff should be fine to top dress with, or in your dual root zone, or add to your teas, or basically any of that stuff. Have you checked that out, Steve?
The build a soil? No, I haven't had a chance to. I haven't been surfing a whole lot down in Jamaica as far as internet stuff.
Yes, so if you go to, it's buildasoil.com, and then under products, they have, obviously they make soil too as well, and they have like Grokashi and Bokashi and EM1 and lots of different stuff like that. But if you look in their like soil amendments, they have what they call a reamendment kit, which is basically to reamend old soil that's been used or dead or whatever. Sort of go back to life, and it's all the same stuff that we use to in a lot of cases to dose in aquaponics systems. So it's a great way to just sort of order, like if you're just looking for a package to get started with, I think that's a great way to go, because you can get sort of a little bit of everything to cover it.
The other people I would give a shout out to, if you're looking for a short list or a basic list of stuff that's all dosed out, definitely check out True Aquaponics. Has a bunch of nutrient packages and all that are all dosed out for aquaponics. And then the other company that has a lot of good stuff for aquaponics is Ketalife. Has a whole bunch of good organic products, and just watch some of the stuff that has high nitrogen, but all their stuff, as long as you don't go nuts with the dosing, is perfectly fish safe. I've used all of it working over at the lab at Aquaponics Source. In fact, they still carry the products over there. So, but those are the two companies I would say also have real good off-the-shelf options or with dosing options on there.
Yeah, I spent a while on Ketalife's website checking it out after you were giving away the samples and stuff. It looks like they have some really good stuff on there too.
Yeah.
So it looks like Plan Builder was asking about chelated micro mixes.
So that totally depends on the micro mix and what the chelate is. And yeah, I mean, if it has like DTPA zinc in it, like that would be a no. But like it really comes down to like individual mixes and looking at individual ingredients lists. If you have anyone that has a question on a product, whether or not it's usable in aquaponics, is more than welcome to send me or Marty a message with it, and then we'll do our research on it. We try to do different stuff each week. This week I didn't really have one, but he had the what was the question he had about earlier? The calcium product, the BioLink Calcium Plus. That was a good question. True Aquaponics or KeyToLifeGarden.com. KeyToLifeGarden.com. And the other website I'll plug in that real quick that we are real good friends with is the realgrowers.com. They make the Recharge, which is another real good fish safe product. It's kind of similar, not similar, but similar in type to the Mammoth P in that it's a microbe, but it does not do so much on the phosphorus. It works on some of your other nutrients. But that's the nice thing about aquaponics is you're going to be dosing some of your nutrients, and then every third or fourth time dose with your microbes and boost them back up, because you've already been adding your nutrients, but some of it's not in an available form, or it's in the wrong wrong form for whatever reason, depending on availability. That's why it's important to add those microbes regularly, like Mammoth P or Recharge or some of your other ones. I know Ketalife's got one, and other companies have them too. It doesn't really matter what you're using, as long as, especially aquaponics systems, it's important to regularly reseed them on a semi-regular basis and make sure that you're maintaining your high nutrient levels. Also dosing things like molasses, occasionally feeding with high sugar foods like grapes or pineapple are other great ways to help maintain high microbe counts.
Cool. And so, yeah, I think that especially if you find yourself adding like more and more nutrients, that's making less of a difference. That's a pretty good indication that you don't have enough microbial life to break down the food fast enough. So you're probably building up stores in your system also. So if you find yourself dosing more nutrients more often and having less of an effect, then you're probably due for a microbial boost. And then you could probably even then wait a little while after that to be able to feed again, because all those microbes will take a little while to eat up your food store. So little things like that, I think are good little tips to be able to take with you. So when you start running into issues like feeding extra and not having it have the results that you feel like it should, then that's a really great indication that it's time to put some more microbes back in. So that's where Recharge or Modern Microbes or Mammoth or T-Lab or like any of those are going to be great. Or even just a good worm tea is always going to help. It's obviously not as an aggressive bacteria or as specific to the nutrients that we're talking about, but it'll definitely give your microbial life a boost. So all those things are a great way to get some more microbial life back in there.
Mosquitoes are out thick today. It was raining earlier.
Doesn't take much water, that's for sure.
No, not here. I'm sure I have like Chikungunya and Zika and a couple of others at this point. So many times I've been bitten. I just gave up.
You're like, I have it all now. Who cares?
Yeah. You ever see The Simpsons? You know, you get the Three Stooges syndrome where they're all trying to get through your immune system at once, so it just blocks them all. It's kind of what I'm counting on.
Nice. Strategy.
Um,
So Plant Builder, did you have any other questions? You've kind of been the one hanging out tonight. It's always nice. We always seem to have at least one or two people hanging out asking questions. It's cool. Are you still there? Did you have anything else you wanted to cover, Steve?
No. Oh, I mean, we normally do a non
Oh yeah,
cannabis plant of the week. Definitely go check out. And it's a fruit you can get sometimes in the States. Right now, it's in season, so go to the store and look for they call it a sweet stop or a custard apple. It'll look like a hand grenade. A little bumps on it. It is a really good fruit, and if you don't know what it is, go try one. They're really, really good. Sour Sap's another good one that's in season, and they're exporting them to the States right now. Both of those, go check them out. They taste too good. So
for next week,
I
have a bush in my backyard that I think some like maybe the landscapers planted or something like that, but it has a bunch of these like sort of like flower pods, I guess. Anyway, I'm gonna cut one, bring it in, and let you take a look at it and see. I want to see if I can compost it for sort of like a flower power kind of concept. So I'll check it out and see if you know what it is. I'll cut a piece off and bring it in for next week.
Sure. One plant, if anyone's looking for something to grow or plant and smoke synergetically with cannabis, is Kanna, K-A-N-N-A. It's an African herb, and it has kind of the same synergenic effect as Benadryl does. It doesn't give you the antihistamine thing where it makes you feel all stupid, but it has the effect that it increases your ability to uptake more cannabinoids before your receptors close, and it's pretty awesome. It makes your herb much more euphoric. It's a small African bush. Definitely check it out if you're looking into adding other things to your smoke and looking for something else to do. It's just a different experience, and it's one of my favorites.
Cool. Looks like we got somebody else new.
Yeah.
Life a boy, I guess. What's the best way to keep clones alive if I have them outside? So I'm not sure exactly what your question is there. Are you concerned about the sun? Generally, if you have clones that are relatively small, you might want to give them a little bit of shade. Direct sun can make them shrivel up and die, basically. So I would recommend some shade.
So I think maybe I'm misinterpreting this. I think he means like, what's the best way to transfer clones to outside? Maybe that's what he's doing. So to do something like that, what you can do is have your clones in your clone dome or whatever you have inside. And then once they have a good root system on them, take the hood off the thing, but make sure you got plenty of water in the bottom of the tray, and let the foliage and the the pores on the leaves get used to the forget what they're called, stomata. Make sure they get used to the lower humidity before you transfer them outside, where it's much different humidity, especially if you're on the West Coast or in Colorado or one of these other places where it's a little drier. You really want to make sure you give your plants time to harden up and give them a week, a couple days. Even put a little fan on them to get them vibrating and moving. And they're gonna look wilted the first day or two, but they'll bounce back and they'll look okay. And then when you transfer them outside, make sure you give them a ton of extra water the first week or two. And that really, really, really helps that whole hardening process. Giving them a couple days in between really, really, really helps.
And if you have a place where you can set them in the shade for, like under a tree on your front porch or something where they can still be outside in the heat with the humidity, but not the direct sun, that's a great way to harden them up too. So you don't, you're not just changing everything all at once and forcing the plant to deal with all that stuff. So, if you've got someplace like that, or even just take them outside for, sort of like a field trip, I guess, and then bring them back in after a while. There's a number of different ways that you can harden them up, but I have a place on my front porch that gets sun for a couple hours a day maybe, and that's where I harden up all of my clones that I'm going to put outside. And then even still, if they're pretty small and I'm concerned about them, I'll put a little shade that stays over them pretty much permanently, just let them stay outside in the shade. So and once they get hardened up, I usually do that for about 2 or 3 days, really. I don't do it for too long. And then after they're pretty well established outside, they go right in the ground and get lots of water, like Steve was talking about. Make sure that they're all good. Or if you're putting them in, like I have an outdoor aquaponics system, if you're putting them in that, then obviously just make sure that you keep them watered until the roots hit the system water. Other than that, should be pretty good.
Does that answer your question, Mafa boy? Ifa boy?
Cool.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Well, my battery's about to guys, so we're gonna have to wrap it up, Steve.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. I think we're gonna keep doing these evening shows. I don't know if I seem to like it. I think Marty's liking it. We seem to have more live people and more interaction, so I don't, unless there's any kind of other objection or anyone speaks out and comment between this week and next week, I think we'll aim for doing an evening one. I think we'll try to do maybe once in a while, try to do one earlier if it's at all possible. Maybe it's not, it's totally fine, but yeah. And then
a good poll we can do for you guys that watch the show on a regular basis. Put in the comment section what time you would be able to attend the podcast, and we'll do.
Yes, Eastern or Pacific.
Doesn't matter. Put in what time zone you're from too, not just.
Yeah, and what time zone? Perfect.
Yeah, that should be good. And then we'll do the best we can to accommodate for the most people. And thanks to the guys that showed up. Plant Builder, appreciate all your questions tonight. And I'm gone.
I will plug Marty's stuff here. Make sure you check out Marty. His YouTube channel is AP Meds on YouTube. You can also hit him up on Facebook at Marty Waddell. And he does he has a regular posting he has a couple outdoor and indoor gardens, a bunch of cool stuff. Definitely go check him out. And you can check out my stuff at my YouTube channel is Potent Ponics. You can check me out at potentponics.com. You can email me at potentponics@gmail.com. Shout out to Keto Life and realgrowers.com. They regularly donate stuff to us to give away. Also shout out to Atria Aquaponics or Atria Hydro. And I think their website's down at the moment, but they'll have, once they go through their website thing he's working on, they'll be back up here soon. Make sure you like and subscribe our videos and the podcast. Feel free to share it. I appreciate you all for watching. And have a great one. Thanks again. And we appreciate everyone who writes us and everything. We had one last thing. We had a really nice letter from someone writing to thank us for helping him, get to his first harvest with aquaponic cannabis. For one of our viewers who asked that his name wasn't mentioned, but I wanted to give him a shout out and just say thank you for writing us. And me and Marty really enjoyed it. So thank you, and have a great one, guys.